Hello everyone and welcome to this very special masterclass on cervical orgasms. My name is Helena Nista and I am a sex therapist and a tantra practitioner. What I do in my business is I help people have great sex, and I do it through one-on-one sessions in person and online, through my online courses, through my book, and through my workshops and events. I help my clients overcome any sexual issues, become better lovers, and create mind-blowing sex lives in whichever way that looks like for them, because we're all different, we're all unique, and we all can cultivate, develop, and create for ourselves very different, very beautiful, unique, mind-blowing things in the bedroom and in our relationships. My work isn't just a business. This is a passion for me, because for many years in my own life, I was in a desperate need of a sex therapist or an intimacy coach, or somebody who could help me create any sort of pleasure, sexual or even orgasmic pleasure in my sex life. When I was much younger, I was sexually abused. I was also experiencing the after effects of growing up in a Catholic family, so a lot of religious suppression around my sexuality, and also with all these different beliefs and patterns of thought and behavior around what I should be like in my sex life and what my sex life should be like. So, as you know from witnessing what's happening in the popular culture around sex, from porn and different influences that we experience on our image of what actually great sex is, there isn't a lot of healthy models that we can draw from in order to really educate ourselves around our sex lives, our eroticism. And so I was really struggling for many years until I encountered Tantra, and I started studying it and practicing it and implementing it into my own bedroom and my own sexual practice, both solo when I was masturbating and with my partner. So things really started to change from that point, and I started to heal all this sexual wounding and all these toxic beliefs, and I started to really develop and cultivate my natural, healthy and beautiful erotic nature. And then I studied sexology and counseling, and I started helping others who were facing all sorts of different problems in their sexual lives. So today I want to specifically speak to you about cervical orgasms. And cervical orgasms are something that obviously women experience, or people who have vaginas and cervixes. However, this masterclass isn't just for women. This class is also for men who want to support their partners in sort of accessing that deep, beautiful, orgasmic pleasure in their cervixes. So both women watching this class will get a lot out of it in terms of what to do, and first of all, why they might not be experiencing cervical orgasms right now, and then what to do to actually create these kind of experiences for themselves. But their male partners can actually do a lot to support these women on their journey towards cervical bliss. In my work, I am often interviewed on different podcasts and platforms and different shows, etc. And whenever I mention the topic of different female orgasms, and one of them being the cervical orgasm, I really get such extreme responses of shock and surprise and almost disbelief that there is such a thing, or what is it and how it works. So that's really why I wanted to record this class, because everybody should know about cervical orgasms. They are so amazing and beautiful and incredibly blissful, and every woman can, experience them. So it's not something that is reserved for lucky few who have that capacity. It's for all of us, but we need to know first what's actually possible for us to be able to experience them and to create these experiences in our bodies and in our sexuality. So I like to actually call the cervical orgasms, the holy grail of all female orgasms. And there's a variety of orgasms that any woman can experience, but in my own personal experience, the cervical orgasms are like the probably most blissful, ecstatic, trance-like states of ecstatic bliss that I feel like my body is capable of. And so the experience itself is beyond words, and I'll be trying to explain here what they actually feel like and what they truly really are. But the experience itself truly is beyond words, because it is just such a deeply embodied state of bliss where you're not even thinking, you're completely out of your head, you're just fully in your body, having this deeply orgasmic experiencing flowing through your entire system. So there's a lot of reasons why all of us should know about cervical orgasms and how to have them and give them to our partners. So first of all, what is a cervix? Cervix is the entrance to the womb. Cervix is located at the end of the vaginal canal. So it kind of sticks out of the back vaginal wall, kind of like the tip of the nose. It feels to touch a bit like the tip of the nose. So you can usually access it with a finger, or a penis can stimulate it during intercourse. The cervix will typically lift out of the way when the woman is aroused, so it's easiest to find it, locate it, and touch it when the woman is not aroused. But cervical orgasms are orgasms that are caused by the stimulation of the cervix. So all women are different, their bodies are different, and so the length of the vaginal canal will be a bit different among different women. And some women will be able to easily touch the cervix with the finger. Some women won't, and that's fine. I'll be giving you different ways to actually touch and stimulate your cervix, so don't worry. But first of all, you need to know what the cervix actually is and where to find it. And when it comes to a woman's orgasmic potential, there are so many different orgasms that women can experience, but they broadly break into two categories, one of them being the external explosive orgasms, and the other category being the internal expansive orgasms. The external ones are basically come down to the mostly, in most cases, to the clitoral orgasm, and that's the one that probably most women know. Like huge majority of women know and identify orgasm as the clitoral orgasm, and what that means is her clitoris is being stimulated pleasurably, and there's more and more pleasure and sexual charge in her clitoris, in her genitals, until that overwhelming pleasure is released in a few seconds of a highly pleasurable orgasmic climax. That's the clitoral orgasm. The internal orgasms are different. They feel different because different sets of nerves connect those internal parts of the vagina with the brain and the pleasure centers in the brain. When you look at the clitoris, the nerve that connects the clitoris with the brain is the pudendal nerve, whereas the internal, especially the deeper parts of the vagina, connect to the brain through the vagus nerve. So that in itself will cause a difference in how these orgasms feel. But when the cervix is being stimulated pleasurably through a finger, through a sex toy or a penis, then through that pleasurable stimulation, the sexual charge and pleasurable sensations will keep sort of growing and growing until that pleasure and that arousal will result in a cervical orgasm. What a cervical orgasm feels like? It feels very expansive. It feels in a way slower than the clitoral orgasm. When you have a clitoral orgasm, it's typically that sort of quick, sharp, explosive sort of few seconds of pleasure. But when the cervix is being stimulated and when the orgasm is created in the cervix, then the pleasure seems to sort of expand and flow through the whole body in a slower kind of a way. It kind of feels almost like the waves of pleasure just keep rippling and expanding and flowing through your entire system. It's an extremely blissful state. Some women actually compare it to or describe it as a spiritual experience. It feels like you're connecting with the whole universe, with that expansiveness, that sense of oneness with the entire universe. So that can be an incredibly blissful, beautiful, ecstatic experience. And typically a cervical orgasm will also last a lot longer than a clitoral orgasm. It can last for minutes, close to an hour, depending how well you train your body and how well you resensitize your body and how well you can keep that experience going. This can even expand for as long as you want. But there's a lot at stake here because, as you can see, this is a truly amazing experience to have. And it's also really deeply nurturing. As far as orgasmic experiences go, all orgasms, have the capacity to be very nurturing and satisfying. But a lot of women find that those more kind of external or clitoral orgasms can sometimes leave them feeling sort of depleted and almost with a sense of, was that it? So cervical orgasm is very different. It feels deeply nurturing. It's like you're being grounded, deeply grounded in your body while this pleasure energy is just swirling, moving and expanding through your entire system. Most women are not currently experiencing cervical orgasms because the cervix can become desensitized. And through a process of becoming desensitized, it can basically become numb. The process of desensitizing the cervix usually is the result of mechanical or forceful or aggressive thrusting during intercourse. So most people look at porn as a sexual education. And most people feel like the best way to have sex is a way where there's a lot of friction and excitement and movement and speed, etc. So that can be a very exciting, beautiful, fun way to have sex, but it's a way that will typically cause the cervix to kind of withdraw and shut down. Just imagine what happens to the skin tissue that is exposed to repeated harsh treatment. Kind of, you can imagine it as the hands of a construction worker who is handling rough, heavy items, and so over time he develops calluses. It's like the skin is trying to protect itself from feeling, from being exposed to this, to that kind of harsh impact. So it develops hard skin and calluses so that he doesn't feel them. So there's no more pain, so there's no more damage to that, gentle, more sensitive tissue underneath. So there won't be actual calluses on the cervix, but those nerve endings on the, in the cervix will start to sort of shut down and withdraw and deactivate in order to stop the discomfort from happening. A lot of women report that intercourse can be painful to them, especially during that kind of deep thrusting, and that's typically because the head of the penis is hitting the cervix, and so the cervix is slowly in the process of shutting down and becoming more and more numb. So a woman whose cervix is numb cannot obviously have those cervical orgasms. When your cervix is numb, it's not gonna create the kind of pleasure that you need in order to reach a state of a cervical orgasm. However, this process is fully reversible. So that's great news. You can actually resensitize the cervix, and I'm gonna teach you in this masterclass exactly how to do that. So you can resensitize the cervix, and you can actually grow expand and cultivate your orgasmic potential, particularly when it comes to your cervix and your ability to have cervical orgasms. Yes, all women can have cervical orgasms. You have a cervix, you can have a cervical orgasm. It's not, like I mentioned before, it's not a knowledge or skill reserved to lucky few. Every single woman can have them. Every single woman can train her body and resensitize the cervix and recondition the body to experience cervical orgasms. This even applies to women who have had their cervix surgically removed for whatever reason. And the body is really amazing in that way because it energetically stores the imprint of the cervix. And so you can have these kind of experiences. You can have cervical orgasms even when you no longer have the actual cervix, the actual organ. So, if you are a lady who is currently not experiencing cervical orgasms, or if you're a man whose partner isn't having this kind of orgasms, I'm going to teach you now and show you now what to do to turn cervix into the orgasmic ecstatic organ that it was meant to be. First of all, you need to locate your cervix. It is so important to know your erotic and genital anatomy. So many people don't really realize what's going on down there. So many women are a bit confused about different parts of their genital anatomy. And it's tricky to fully cultivate and explore your orgasmic potential if you don't exactly know what's where. So the cervix is at the very end of the vaginal canal, feels like a tip of the nose sticking out of the back wall of the vagina. Also, as mentioned previously, it can be easier to find when you're not aroused, because during arousal the cervix will lift out of the way in order to lengthen the vaginal canal, so that to allow sort of for deeper penetration. So another thing to remember is that during your cycle the cervix will also kind of move up and down, out of the way, or will drop down lower into the vaginal canal, depending on whether you're closer to ovulation or menstruation. So you just bear that in mind when you're exploring and when you're looking for your cervix, because it's a good idea to sort of search and explore during different times in your monthly cycle. For a huge majority of women, the cervix needs to be resensitized first. This process is also in Tantra called vaginal de-armoring. The process basically consists of sort of reactivating the nerve endings or waking them up so that they can come out of their numb state and they can feel much more, hence giving and expanding your pleasure potential when it comes to touching and stimulating the cervix. So there are a few ways to do that. One way is using your own fingers, so introducing a finger or a few fingers inside of the vagina, locating the cervix, and just gently and lovingly massaging and stimulating the cervix. Another way to do it, especially for ladies who have sort of longer vaginal canals and cannot quite reach the cervix with the finger, they can actually use a dildo. And my preference is actually for a stone dildo, meaning a crystal pleasure wand, like a rose quartz wand or a black obsidian wand, etc. This kind of wands, I believe they're actually much healthier for our bodies than any kind of plastic or silicone dildos, but it's obviously your body and your choice what you decide to use. And the way I like to use my pleasure wand is by simply introducing the wand, you can obviously oil it first so that it's it's much easier and nicer to introduce that kind of lubricated wand inside, and then you can introduce the wand inside of the vaginal canal all the way to the end so that it's touching the cervix. And so here you can literally just hold the wand when it's touching the cervix. You can just hold it still, or you can introduce some kind of movement to the wand. You know, you can gently tap it or gently move it around so that it's massaging the cervix in different ways. Third way to stimulate and massage and de-armor the cervix is using your partner's penis. However, the cervix doesn't necessarily like the fast and aggressive thrusts. So here, the man needs to thrust in a way that is much more slow and gentle and sensual, almost to the point of actually introducing the penis inside of the vagina and then just using his hips to move and sort of turn the penis, around. He can sort of use his hips to move himself up and down so that the penis is sort of stroking the cervix in this kind of up and down motion, or the man can actually create sort of make circles with his hips so that his penis is stroking the cervix in kind of circular way. Or he can simply make those kind of little movements, withdrawing just a little bit back and then forward and a little bit back and forward, sort of gently touching the cervix and then withdrawing just a little bit. And it's a very gentle stimulation. It's not the kind of, porn style, full of friction kind of thrusting. It's more of a gentle in and out in this kind of a way. There are a few reasons why it's so important for this work to be very gentle and slow and sensual as opposed to hard and fast. And it's mainly to do with the fact that the hard and fast movement is what contributes to the shutting down of the nerve endings in the first place. So that's how most likely your cervix became numb in the first place. So any kind of extra level of hard and fast stimulation by the penis will just keep adding to that numbness or potential trauma in the cervix. So it's quite important to start thinking of your cervix as your precious body part that you need to take care of, and make sure that you limit its exposure to this kind of hard and fast porn style penetration and thrusting. So with all of these options, whether you're using your fingers, whether you're using a dildo, or potentially maybe even a vegetable, if you don't own a dildo, like cucumbers can really work great, but make sure that your cucumber is peeled and sort of made smooth, so there's no edges that could potentially be uncomfortable for your vaginal canal. So then inserting a peeled cucumber can be fun here as well. But whether you're using fingers or a toy or your man is assisting you, what's important is that first of all, you're very relaxed. Relaxation is so important, particularly in your pelvic area, because any kind of tension will just keep adding to the numbing and dissociating almost from your body. This is what we do whenever we are feeling discomfort or fearing discomfort. We tense up. Tension will cut out the sensations. It will sort of reduce your sensitivity. So here it's very important to be very relaxed, especially your pelvic area, to make sure that you can really relax your entire pelvis and your PC muscle, your pelvic floor muscle entirely during this process. Secondly, your breath. So important. To really relax the breath as well, and to make sure that you're breathing in a way that is sort of slower and deeper than you would normally breathe. So I'm not talking here about any sort of chest shallow breathing, but much more about the abdominal breathing, when you're drawing the breath all the way down to the belly and then letting it out fully. So it's this kind of slow, relaxed breathing. This is important particularly when things start to come up. Maybe you might feel a bit of discomfort, a bit of pain, or even emotions coming up like sadness, anger, frustration, or fear, etc. when this kind of emotions come up, it is so important to actually breathe through them as opposed to trying to like stifle them and shut them down. This is part of this process. You know, your vagina and particularly your cervix can store so much trauma and so many kind of bottled up emotions around experiencing this kind of uncomfortable or unwanted sex. And so we as women, we store so much in our cervixes. This process, this de-armoring process or resensitizing process, is about relaxing the tissue, is about activating and waking up the nerve endings, and it's also about letting go and releasing of whatever you're holding in your cervix so that its full pleasure potential can be restored and reawakened. And then finally, the third thing you need to do is to stay fully present. What that means is not getting distracted, not thinking about anything else, not wondering about what's going to happen next or what happened during the day, but actually doing your best to bring your attention fully into your cervix. And here, you know, obviously sometimes your mind will wander, and that's okay. Just as soon as you notice that, keep bringing your attention and your awareness back into your cervix. This is really and really a really important part of this process, so please don't forget that. And when you, and particularly if you don't really know where your cervix is, like in your mind, when you're trying to visualize it in order to bring your attention to your cervix, but maybe your cervix is so numb that you're not feeling anything, just intend to feel your cervix. In my early years, when I was only starting this practice, I would literally kind of map out where I should be placing my awareness. So I would first feel into my vaginal opening, which I could feel in my head. Then I would kind of bring my attention up along my vaginal canal, as much as I felt the vaginal, along what I thought was the length of my vaginal canal. And then wherever my attention landed at that point, I would just assume that that's the cervix. So I had to kind of like find my way to feeling the cervix, because at first I just didn't have a reference point about what I should be feeling. So try that. Or if you can feel your cervix, especially when you're stimulating it with a finger or a dildo, teach yourself where that spot is in your body and what you should do, where you should place your awareness to really feel it, so that you can even maybe do this exercise of just feeling it even without actually stimulating it. This is something I absolutely love doing when I go to sleep. As I'm about to fall asleep, I love to just bring my awareness to my cervix and just breathe and just feel my cervix and connect with it, because even that little exercise without my cervix being actually physically touched, even that kind of little placement of awareness exercise is going to help your body to start resensitizing the cervix. Outside of actually purposefully resensitizing the cervix and doing this practice with your fingers, toes, or a penis in order to resensitize the cervix, there are actually also other things you can do or pay attention to when you're maybe not specifically doing the practice of de-armoring, but when you're maybe making love or self-pleasuring, or when you're just having fun with your partner and you want to keep supporting your cervix in opening up and becoming more and more orgasmic. And one of those things is to relax. So whenever you're making love or whenever you're masturbating, make sure that your pelvic area is very relaxed, because so many women hold so much tension in their vaginas and especially around their cervixes that for them, particularly for those women, the thrusting and penetration can be painful, particularly at the sort of, at the end when the head of the penis is hitting the cervix, the back wall of the vagina. So if that's your experience, first of all, ask your partner to be a bit slower, a bit gentler, but also check in the tension that you might be holding in your pelvic area. And maybe take a few breaths and keep relaxing that area more and more. I find that especially directing my breath down to your pelvis, so imagining that my breath is flowing all the way down to my pelvis will help. And the second thing that will help is to visualize my pelvic area sort of opening up like a flower and becoming more and more sensitive, relaxed, expanded. That visualization can really help, but first of all, develop a practice of scanning your pelvic area for tension and then releasing it whenever you find it. Making noises can be so helpful in this process, and it actually will be helpful on two different levels. First of all, when you're allowing your sound and your voice to come out naturally as it arises, you're actually supporting your body in becoming more open to the sensations and more relaxed in the whole process, as opposed to when you're constricting your voice and your throat and you're kind of informing your body that there needs to be potentially some level of tension being held in your body, which then your body will translate into constricting and creating the muscle tension in your pelvic area as well. But there is a second benefit to actually making sounds as well, and that's supporting your body in processing whatever it needs to process around your cervix, meaning all of this potential past trauma, wounding, pain, discomfort, all these emotions that you've been storing in your cervix for so many years, like anger, resentment, frustration, fear, anxiety, etc. When the cervix starts to be lovingly, caringly stimulated and resensitized, it will start to release those emotions. And what will happen is these different emotions will still need to move through your body in order to be fully let go of. So whenever you do feel like crying or moaning or laughing or screaming or even humming during sex, you should allow yourself to do that, because in this way you're actually allowing that emotional charge to move through your body and then to be released completely, as opposed to being still stuck and left in your body. So if this kind of big sounds and screams or roars of pleasure, pain, or frustration are hard for you at this point, start with just a little bit of a sigh or a moan, or even a humming can be helpful. But see how much you can actually open up yourself to your full expression in the bedroom, because it's going to be so beneficial for your sexual experience, and particularly for opening your body up to cervical orgasms. So whenever you feel that inclination or a desire in your body to express sounds, moans, screams, tears, etc., allow all of that to come. Allow all the sound to come out of your body. Almost think of it as expressing your sensations through a sound. Allowing it to just flow through your system and watch what happens. Knowing what works for you is going to be so helpful, not just in this process, but in your entire sex life. We are all so unique, and we have such varied preferences and desire and needs in the bedroom when it comes to our pleasure. So explore your body, and for the purpose of particularly cultivating your cervical orgasms, explore your cervix. Really learn what it feels like to stimulate, touch, and explore your cervix, and learn what your cervix prefers. As mentioned before, the hard and fast rarely works, but maybe that's what you desire, maybe that's what your body needs. But explore, because you are the only expert on your body. It's your body. There's nobody else who can be a bigger authority on what you need than you are. So when you're exploring the cervix, really notice what kind of touch works and what kind of pressure works, what kind of speed works, etc. So is it just holding your cervix? Is it circles? Is it up and down? Is it side to side? Is it any, tapping, vibrating? Is it any other kind of stimulation? It's your body, and the better you know what works for you, the better you can ask your partner to give you that, and the easier you will get to the point of experiencing these beautiful, blissful, expanded cervical orgasms. I feel like it's such a tricky thing to tell someone, let go of goals. Because here is that big goal of having cervical orgasms. That's what we're talking about. But you must realize that the more determined you are to achieve a certain goal, the more you're gonna be kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Because when we're determined to achieve something, when we have an agenda, when we really try to make something happen, we're creating tension, we're tensing up around this prospect, and we're also not being very present because we're already looking forward to a particular outcome. So as much as I understand your desire to have cervical orgasms, I really urge you to not see it as this big goal of, is it gonna happen now? Oh my God, is it gonna happen now? No, not yet. When will it happen? This is just not gonna serve you. I'm sorry to say that. What will serve you is to treat this whole experience, this whole exploration, as a playful activity, as a fun adventure to have with your body and your cervix, as a wonderful journey to go on of exploration and curiosity and pleasure and just seeing what's possible, as opposed to being so determined and on the mission of achieving these beautiful cervical orgasms. They will come, don't worry. But for now, release yourself from the necessity to achieve that big goal and just have fun in the process. Because the best orgasms happen not when we're really trying hard for them, but when we're so immersed in the experience and just having pleasure and just having fun with it, that the orgasm just overtakes us naturally. And that's how cervical orgasms happen. It's not something that you just kind of rub your cervix hard and fast and then finally it's like a clitoral orgasm. It doesn't really work like that. You have to allow yourself almost to fall into your cervical orgasm, and you will achieve that by letting go of the agenda, letting go of the goal, and just enjoying your cervix and the cervical stimulation and the sensations for the sake of the pleasure and the sensations that you're experiencing there. I want to give you 2 more additional practices here that I feel like can be really, really helpful, particularly if you're finding that the other practices are not quite getting you where you want to be, if there's a bit of a struggle. I want to give you 2 more things that can be really, really beneficial here. One of them is using a jade egg. Jade egg is a small egg-shaped piece of crystal. They typically are made of jade, but there are different varieties. You can get them made from different crystals as well. I love to use my jade egg when I go to sleep. You can self-pleasure with it. You can some ladies use it for weightlifting with their vaginas to strengthen the pelvic floor muscle. I just love to sleep with it. So what I do is I put the egg inside of my vagina as I'm going to sleep. And then as I'm asleep, when I'm moving in my sleep, the egg is sort of moving around with me and massaging the internal walls of my vagina. I really love that experience, and I wake up feeling sort of with that kind of sense of freshness and sensuality and sensitivity in my vaginal canal. Because when, not a lot of women, particularly single women, not a lot of these women experience a lot of internal touch. So typically when women self-pleasure, when they masturbate, they just go for the external touch, particularly the clitoris. So there isn't typically a lot of stimulation happening inside, internally. And when you're not stimulating these nerve endings, they just become sort of more and more dormant and numb over time. So making sure that a jade egg is massaging your vaginal canal internally every night or some nights is going to be helpful here as well. And the last practice is, I guess, a bit more energetic in a way that I invite you to develop a very special bond and connection with your cervix, because your cervix is an entrance to the womb, and the womb, your womb itself has such an incredibly magical, beautiful, amazing potential. You know, this is the seat of your femininity, the seat of your creativity as a woman. You know, we can grow life in our wombs. You know, isn't that just amazing and mind-blowing? So I find that when I started cultivating this kind of connection with my cervix and with my womb as this very sacred, creative, feminine aspect of my body and place in my body, when I started to regularly place my hands on my womb, breathe into my womb, and make sure to place my awareness in my womb and particularly on my cervix, that really helped me to cultivate a deeper connection and more sensual, sensitive, more alive connection with my cervix and with my womb. So I would encourage you to start developing this kind of practice for yourself as well. Maybe becoming more and more curious about your womb. You know, some women can feel their womb. So when you place your awareness in your womb area, what do you feel? And if you were to do that ask yourself that question on a daily basis, you would start to notice, and you will start to notice more and more in terms of the awareness of your womb and your cervix, and also of sensitivity and sensations in that area. So that's it from me for today, for this masterclass. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you got a lot out of it. I hope that it serves you powerfully and that you apply all of these different practices and techniques, and that you really allow yourself to awaken your cervix and to cultivate its full magical, ecstatic, orgasmic potential. If you would like to learn more about me, you can find me on my website, helenanista.com, and also on social media, on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, where I post regularly a variety of really powerful tips and techniques and practices and rituals, both from the tantric tradition, but also from sexology and sexual healing. So I invite you to connect with me, and also let me know your feedback or your thoughts about this masterclass, and also let me know, I hope to hear from you about your results, about how you were able to keep cultivating your orgasmic potential and your cervix's orgasmic potential as a result of this class. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to hear from you. And here is to more pleasure, more orgasmicness, and more femininity in your body and in your cervix.